Hi, this is Piero Bonissone, and I have the honor today of interviewing a good friend of mine, Jim Bezdek. Jim has done so much for the society, and we'll try to capture his experience from the beginning to current days. And hopefully, this would be a snapshot of someone who contributed so much to our field as Jim Bezdek has. So, Jim, let's tell us a little bit about yourself first. What drove you to engineering or science?
Well, first let me tell you this, Piero. I'm retired. I've been retired for 4 years, and I'm sitting here with you in Taipei, having a wonderful time, trying to make this very first CIS history interview. So on to the questions. What turned me into engineering? When I went in the U.S. Navy, I was 18 years old. I was trained to be an electronics technician, repairing radars, and that's how I learned about technology and engineering and so forth. So when I got out of the Navy, I was very interested in engineering.
That sounds good. Was anyone or did any event push you into engineering?
No event other than my training in the Navy pushed me into engineering. However, at the other end, when I was finishing my engineering degree, an event pushed me out of engineering. And that was that the chairman of the Civil Engineering Department at the University of Nevada, Reno, told me I would never be able to think for myself. I would always have to follow code books if I was going to be a professional engineer. Well, that wasn't for me. I wanted to do theory, do math, think a little bit, so I got out of engineering and went into applied math.
I see. That's quite a transition.
True story.
Absolutely. So your formal education is in civil engineering, or?
My undergraduate degree is in civil engineering, and my PhD is in applied mathematics.
Okay, good. So what about your first job? Was that
First
in
job
engineering? After the Navy training?
Well, after when I got out of the Navy, I went right to the university. I was a student for 11 years, actually.
Okay.
But I did have one technical job for several years while I was a student. I became a survey party chief for the city of Reno, doing surveying work, and I quite liked that, actually. Nice active outdoor job, but I eventually left that field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. So I believe that your first paper was already in fuzzy logic. Am I correct?
That's correct. My very first paper was Numerical Taxonomy with Fuzzy Sets, published in 1974.
Very few people can say that. That's good. That's good. So, when did you get involved in computational intelligence?
Well, if you want to call computational intelligence the marriage of the three technologies, fuzzy systems, evolutionary computation, neural networks, I got involved in it when I was a graduate student.
Not a good idea.
When I first learned about pattern recognition. We're laughing here because the
okay.
camera operator's cell phone is ringing like crazy.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Put it on mute.
Adds a little levity to it.
And we'll just cut here and pick from the previous question.
It's okay.
No big deal.
Just leave it in. It'll be fun fun for the viewers to see that.
No, we'll cut this. So we'll go back to...
The question again was?
The question again was, when did you first get involved in computational intelligence?
Okay, well, when I was a graduate student in 1971, I believe, Dave Block, one of my thesis advisors, handed me a draft copy of Dude and Hart's seminal book on pattern recognition, said, "Here, Jim, read this and tell me if there's anything wrong in it." So that was how I got into pattern recognition, and about the same time, someone else handed me Lafizette's 1965 paper and said, "I think you'll be interested in this." And of course that started me thinking about marrying the ideas in Lafi's paper to the ideas in Dude and Hart's book.
Very good. Well, Jim, you're one of our first pioneers. And which major challenge did you face in your pioneering research?
Challenge. The major challenge for everyone in the early days of fuzzy sets was to beat off attacks from the probability gang. all of us when we were young had this problem. Latvia, of course, was in the forefront. He was the person who was attacked most, but all the rest of us were also attacked. And it was always a challenge to get papers published, to get anybody to take you seriously, to get research grants. So this is not a research challenge. This is a logistics challenge that we had in the early days of fuzzy sets. It's still somewhat of a challenge, I believe, for young people today, but I don't think it's as severe as it was back when I was starting out. And my personal challenge, of course, was that I had a wife and 4 kids. So it was hard for me to find time to do anything, but I did find some time.
Apparently you did.
Apparently.
Well, so you had many contributions. Which is the one that gives you the major satisfaction? Greatest satisfaction?
Well, I suppose my greatest recognition, of course, has come from my involvement with the fuzzy C-means model and the fuzzy C-means clustering algorithms. I'm still working on it today, almost 40 years after I started working on it, but I would say that even more important to me is my involvement with the other people I've collaborated with in my lifetime. Let me just name a few: Jim Keller, Tim Havens, Chris Leckie, Lucy Conchiva, Nick Powell, Rick Hathaway. These people work with me and help me along, and I believe I work with them and help them along. And I feel very good about my collegial involvement with so many other professionals who have done well as students who you've never heard of. So I think that's really that's what I would call my most significant contribution is to the general professional society, the people in it, and so forth. Maybe that sounds goofy, but that's the way I feel.
Not goofy at all. So how do you think that the society, whether now it's computational intelligence, used to be NNS, and prior to that, the Neural Network Council, right? Which impact did the existence of society have for you?
Could you repeat that?
Yes.
Which
What's the impact that the society has had on you?
impact the society's on me?
Yeah, and then...
All right, well, my own personal growth, because of the 3 groups, first there was the Neural Networks Council, then the Neural Network Society, and then the CIS. The impact to me was it got me involved in big-time conferences. IEEE is, of course, the biggest professional society in the world. It drew all of us in fuzzy sets into having nice transactions, collegial interactions with the INNS, the other big neural network society. All of these things helped me grow personally into probably a much more well-rounded professional than I might have been if it had not been for the IEEE in general. And I think it probably benefits all of us being associated with the IEEE. Before the IEEE took us in, if that's the right word, we were sort of on the margin. We were kind of a marginal, even though we were doing well scientifically, professionally we were quite marginal. I think the IEEE has had a huge impact on me personally and the rest of us in general.
Good. Now let me switch the question around. What do you think is the impact that you have had on the society?
Well, I have had some impact on the society over the years. I've been involved with them now for exactly 20 years. I founded the IEEE Transactions on Fuzzy Systems in 1992 and was its first editor. I proposed and named and ran the first Fuzz IEEE conference, of which we were sitting here in Taipei at a Fuzz IEEE. So that was nice. So all these conferences, I think I started those. I coined the term computational intelligence after I wrote a paper about it, and it subsequently became the name of our World Congress on Computational Intelligence, and now it's the name of our society. And in fact, it's a kind of a ubiquitous term worldwide nowadays, so I suppose you could say I'm the father of a buzzword.
Very well. Branding is important in this world.
Branding is important.
So what do you think the impact of the society is in our engineering and science field?
In engineering and science, well, of course, there's the standard academic impact of having journals, having people doing research, writing papers, and so forth. Our society, excuse me, has been very important, I think, for young people. We have a very active travel grants program. We have a good summer school program. We've mounted efforts to help many young professionals. I believe that our conferences give opportunities for lots of people to come and see what's going on and learn from each other. So certainly we've had, we the society have had, I think a significant impact on the technologies that we deal with.
I agree, certainly. So now let's look at the future, which is always difficult. So one of the questions that I have here in this list of questions is, how do you envision the evolution of computational intelligence technologies? It's a tough question, I know.
Well, Piero, my good friend Niels Bohr used to say, to predict is difficult, especially the future. And I'm not a visionary person. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I like the details. The devil's in the details for me. If you asked me in 1991 what it would be like now, 20 years later, I would have badly underestimated the changes in our life, both technically and in all other ways. There are things happening today that no one would ever imagine could be true 20 years ago. And I'm sure that 20 years from now, the same statement will be true again. I think in the near term, our immediate horizon will probably see the onset of cloud computing. I think that's coming whether we want it or not. Wireless sensor networks are going to regulate and possibly spy on all portions of our life. I think that's coming. I think medical imaging and medical computing will become the predominant way for the very important healthcare field to evolve. I think the environmental worry we have about the planet will drive a lot of so-called green technologies. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have to be involved with that. And probably social networking, all the aspects of the technology of social networking. Those things are all going to happen next 5 years. And beyond 5 years, Piero, I just hope I'm alive.
Well, sounds like a good set of predictions anyway. Do you think that the computational intelligence technologies will converge at a certain point? And do you expect maybe some new entries?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by converge.
Well, we started as silos, right? Fuzzy, evolutionary, and neural computation. And we start having a lot of hybrids. Do you think there will be a major convergence of the three, or
I don't think convergence is the right word, Piero.
Okay.
I believe that the fabric of the three technologies is interlaced right now. We have fuzzy neural networks, and we have evolutionary computation making its way through both of the other fields. It's not a question that one of these technologies will be subsumed by or disappear or renamed or something like that. They all help each other right now. And I believe as time goes on, that will become more and more and more the case. A hybrid model, certainly.
Yeah, I didn't mean by convergence the loss of identity, but indeed we are very much intertwined.
I believe that's certainly the case.
Do you see any new emerging technology that might join the major three?
I thought I just named them, Piero.
Well, you name more applications, I guess, than technologies.
Well, I think the applications are going to be in places like healthcare, elder care, for example, diagnosis. We're going to see a lot of improvements in things like cancer, Alzheimer's disease. Those are going to come from us. I have a friend in Australia that has just designed a very cheap pulse oximeter, which will bring testing to many third world countries that can't afford the standard equipment that we have now because of its cost. He's learned how to put it on a cell phone. And of course, everyone has cell phones, so everyone will be able to have pulse oximetry. So that sort of thing is going to happen. It's hard to see how the whole how the aspect of the wireless thing is going to work worldwide. I mean, it's impossible to know. But whatever happens, we will be in it for sure.
So do you expect any technological breakthrough? I mean, we talk about evolutionary, but maybe some revolutionary breakthrough that would involve CI.
I hadn't really thought of it. I hadn't anticipated that question, but